Let's talk some Michigan recruiting. We got a big noon kickoff this weekend against the Texas Longhorns. All eyes on the Michigan Wolverines. A lot of recruits going to be in attendance. I got EJ Holland from the Wolverine, and we're going to talk some recruiting. But first, Michigan fans, do me a favor and hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We love talking Michigan recruiting here. We're going to do it all season long, so lock in and hit subscribe for me, please. All right, let's bring in EJ Holland. And EJ, let's talk first about linebacker Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. He's a maybe on that visitor list. I'm sure you guys will confirm it later on this week on the Wolverine. But he's the number 69 ranked player overall. Notre Dame leads on the RPM, but we know Michigan's involved. We know Texas is also involved. So how important is this game for these two teams?
Yeah, it's huge. Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng made an official visit to Michigan in June. He also saw Notre Dame, Ohio State, USC coming out of the summer. I felt like Michigan and Notre Dame were right at the top of that list. Suddenly, Florida started to come in. He was there this past weekend. Obviously, they got boat raced. But Texas, has come in as a player as well. So he really wants to get a chance to see both teams. He's trying to make it work with his schedule, trying to see if flights are available. I'm actually covering the IMG Coco game on Friday night, and the only flight out of the state of Florida is up in Orlando at 5:45 a.m. to make it in time for kickoff. So, they're still trying to plan out. It kind of sucks when you're a team like Michigan and you recruit nationally and you have a noon kickoff from a recruiting perspective because it's tough for guys to get in. But anyway, with the Owusu-Boateng, like I said, I felt like Notre Dame and Michigan were the two schools coming out of the summer. I felt like Ohio State and USC had faded some, but I think of Texas and Florida, Texas is a more stable situation and has a chance to make a real impact. So he wants to see both schools in action, preferably against each other this weekend. Michigan had an entire defensive staff change this offseason, so he wants to see how Wink Martindale will run the defense as opposed to Jesse Minter. What kind of similarities will there be? Differences, obviously. How will he be utilized in particular? Does he feel like he meshes well with that? Kind of the same thing with Texas, just seeing the defensive scheme, getting more familiar with Texas since they're kind of a late rising contender. So it would be big to get them on campus, even from a Texas perspective. Obviously, it's an away game for them, but I think they want Owusu-Boateng to get a chance to see them live before he makes his own visit out to Austin. But, both of these teams are very strong contenders in this race. They're right up there with Notre Dame. His brother played for the Irish, and that's a big thing for him. But I think Michigan has done a fantastic job. And I think Texas has done a really good job of rising late here. When it comes to Michigan, he's the guy at the linebacker position. It's one of the biggest needs left, and he's right at the top of the board.
Yeah, I mean, hey, there's not many top 100 players available at any position right now, so Boateng being available at number 69 overall, he's a key recruit. So we're going to talk more about Michigan recruiting. One of these common themes when we talk big visit weekends is the fact that they have younger prospects being on campus. With the recruiting cycle being so sped up, I mean, most of the 2025 cycle is already determined. Michigan has a ton of commitments already, so they are looking to 2026. There's going to be some key trench monsters on campus. EJ, who are you focused on?
Yeah, definitely. So like I said, it's tough for guys out of region to make it for noon kickoff. So I think the USC visitors list might be a little bit more stacked, but still a really good, list early on for Michigan for the 2026 class, especially as you mentioned in the trenches, on the offensive line. You have Gregory Patrick, who's one of Michigan's biggest targets, top 100 kid, in-state kid. Michigan needs to keep top talent at home. And so Gregory Patrick's visited on multiple occasions. Michigan's been doing very, very well in that recruitment. You have Will Conroy coming in from enemy territory out of Ohio. Michigan recently made his top 5. I think the Wolverines have a really strong chance there. On the defensive line, you have Jermaine Kinsler on 300 defensive linemen coming in from New Jersey. I actually had a chance to see him in game this past week. I think he's going to keep rising up the rankings, potentially be a top 100 guy. He's an absolute monster at 6'5", 275 pounds. Depending on how his body grows, he can play multiple spots along the front. So yeah, I think those three guys really pop out, when it comes to guys in the trenches. I think you have a few other 26s on 300 wide receiver. Travis Johnson out of Virginia was just added to the list a couple of hours ago. I saw him in game on Friday. Fantastic, big-bodied wide receiver, which is something Michigan really needs this next cycle. Jordan Thomas also coming in out of New Jersey, a 4-star defensive back. And the nation's #1 running back, Javian Osborne out of Texas, just told me he's trying to get a last-minute flight out there. So it would be big for him to potentially see the run game against, his home state team in Texas. So those are some of the names to know coming in this weekend.
All right. He's not going to be at the game, but it wouldn't be a Michigan recruiting segment if we didn't talk about 5-star offensive tackle Andrew Babalola. We've been on Andrew Babalola commit watch for the last 5 or 6 weeks. Now we cross into September. As of today, what's today? September 3rd. EJ, what are you hearing on Andrew Babalola?
Yeah, I wrote my insiders piece yesterday, and it's tough. I had one of our fans on the Fort message board ask me, have you ever covered this high profile of a recruitment where it doesn't seem like information's really leaking anywhere? It's been the same info coming out of all sides for the past several weeks. And we're nearing September 6th, which is the date he said he wanted to decide before. And who knows, he might delay it. At this point, I think those on the Michigan side are cautiously optimistic. I think Steve Wilfong's done a great job of detailing, in his talks with various schools, it's always this school and Michigan. So that's usually a good sign. But in this recruitment, again, I don't feel like anybody has a true feel for it. I wrote yesterday, after the 1,000 words, the same conclusion. I still feel like it's 50-50 here. Andrew Babalola has always been a guy that's valued academics, and Michigan offers the best blend of elite academics and elite football. Stanford has the edge when it comes to the education, but Michigan's not that far behind. And when it comes to football, obviously, you're playing on a bigger stage at Michigan. The development's been great along the offensive line. Now, Stanford's produced some offensive linemen as well, but Michigan has, I think, a better track record here recently. They've won back-to-back Joe Moore Awards. The new head coach, Sharon Moore, was responsible for those Joe Moore Awards. He values offensive linemen. He's from Kansas, so there's a personal connection to Andrew Babalola. Babalola actually spent a couple of years of his childhood in nearby Bloomfield Hills in the state of Michigan, which is only about 45 minutes away from Ann Arbor. So, I think Michigan checks a lot of boxes for Babalola. The thing I've heard that's changed recently is Stanford's kind of fading a little bit, and Auburn's making a big run. And Auburn's been red hot on the recruiting trail. NIL hasn't been too much of a factor in this recruitment, but you never know in this era. Things can, change very, very quickly. And so I think, if you're talking to NIL, Auburn has the advantage over Michigan in that perspective. And if that's the deciding factor, then I wouldn't be overly optimistic. But if NIL isn't at the forefront, if it's still about elite football and elite academics, then Michigan has the advantage over all its finalists.
Yeah, you got to love it. Andrew Babalola update. Nobody really knows. So Michigan fans, talk to me and EJ. How do you guys feel about landing a 5-star offensive tackle in this class, and also this upcoming game against Texas? You guys going to win? Give us a score prediction. Comment section below. EJ, thanks for stopping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If you're a Michigan fan watching this, you can subscribe to the Wolverine. 50% off right now for the big game. Just use the promo code GOBLUE at thewolverine.com.
Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.